Well, hello. We're
Hello, everyone.
live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Infinite Awesome Cape and Cowl Book Club show. Nice work. This is the Cape and Cowl show based on the bookstore, where we talk about some comics that we love and have loved and want you to love as well. I'm Cody, aka the Mutant Menace. This is my lovely co-host, Kevin, aka Kev Botzilla. How you doing tonight, Kevin?
So good. So good. So nice. I had to say it twice.
So good. I'm so happy to be here. I got here at a brisk 10 o'clock a.m. for a shift, and I'm so excited to be sitting here now to talk about stuff in front of a camera.
Yay.
Yay! So yeah, this is for people that don't know. This is we just go over some collected editions, some graphic novels that are available for purchase right now. There's a link to purchase everything we talk about in the show in the description of the video. So if you like something, be sure to click through and shop.
Shop, shop, shop.
Shop. So what's new? I feel like it's nice to kind of, get a little toasty and cozy before we dive on in. What's the cool jams? How you been feeling?
I've been feeling good. I was talking earlier about how I've realized that my current pandemic aesthetic is post snowboarding.
There we go.
So I'm getting a little toasty myself. But stuff's good, man. Shop's been kicking. Those sale weekends have been keeping us popping.
Yeah. 'Tis the season. Yeah, I feel like the time of the pandemic has been a time of transformation for many people. We're finding new looks, we're finding new habits, and hopefully one of your habits is watching us talk about comics because that's fun, and we like to hear you sound off as well. So jump in the comments no matter where you're watching. We'll see you. We'll try to highlight you and say hi, and we can talk a little bit about what we're talking about. What's up, Mike Rowe? Welcome to the chat.
What's up, Mike?
Thank you for your continued support, sir. Good sir.
So supportive.
Let me see. Let me get rid of this so we have more of our faces. Okay, cool. All right. Do you think you want to start tonight? What should we do? You eager?
I think you and I were both gonna do a volume 2 of something, right? Should we start with that, or should we save the volume 2 for the end?
Yeah, I was probably going to start with my secret volume 2 book.
Yeah, why don't you go? I know you're very, very enthused about your volume 2, so I can't wait to see what you got to tell us about it.
Right on. Yeah, I would love to. So something that just came out this week, I was very, very excited about because this is one of my favorite comics in the past 2 years. If you follow me anywhere on the internet, you know that I just do not shut up about this book. And I'm hitting you again. Coffin Bound is back. This is volume 2, collecting issues 5 through 8. So it's a 4-issue volume following up on that first volume that we got. The first one's called Happy Ashes. This one is called Dear God. I'm going to avoid spoilers for both the first one and this one, just because I think there's so much to discover here, but I'll go over some of the stuff that you can find in this series. This book actually follows in the footsteps of one of the supporting characters from the first book. She's a young girl named Taka. And in the first book, she's kind of this very angry character who's going through a lot of stuff. Basically, to paraphrase, she's very close to her brother. Her brother was kidnapped by this... Well, I'm not going to get into it. We're talking about the second volume. Read the first volume. But the second volume follows in the footprints of somebody we met in that first volume, essentially. Her name's Taka. And in this book, what she's going through is essentially there's a church, and they all take a drug called God. Their faith and God is basically substance you can find in a syringe. And everybody's injecting God. And what it really is they're injecting themselves with this numbing narcotic. It's called the holy narcotic. They refer to it as various, metaphors for God. And it basically brings them to a very numb place. It kind of numb, much like, a lot of other drugs do. But it takes them into oblivion, and they see oblivion as the one true God, the one true constant that we all have. And they do it because they are avoiding the pains of real life. Now, if you read the first volume, Taka has a lot of pain that she went through, and she's seeking to escape this. She's kind of just gone into this realm and of nothingness. And basically in this book, God is being threatened to be outlawed. So legislation is trying to be passed to get rid of this drug, to get rid of the church. And the only way that the pastor can see as a solution to this and keep their God with them is to find the symbol of death and dying called the Vulture. The Vulture was another character we met in the first volume. He's the guy with the bird head and a bird cage on his shoulders. And he thinks Taka can do this because Taka had seen this elusive bird in the first volume. So she's tasked essentially with finding this bird, and the only way to find this vulture is to be near death. Vultures circle the dying. So what she does, she has the bright idea of putting a hit out on herself. She basically sends out a notice to hitmen that there's a huge cash prize for her head, and she kind of just says, "Come at me," and waits. So it's about one girl chasing death, relentlessly chasing death to prove the existence of a god, which is basically a drug, to save the drug and keep them in their bubble away from the pains of real life. Now, of course, she finds meaning in life in the middle of all of this. So, in the story, she finds people that, she ends up falling in love and realizes, all too late that she doesn't necessarily want to be lost in God, lost in nothingness, and certainly doesn't want to die. But the henchmen are still after her. The henchmen are crazy characters. In the second issue, you meet one of the henchmen is an extreme empath. So he's basically like a human voodoo doll. He empathizes with people on a mental level, gets to know who they are just by like meditating and like divination into their eyes. And once he's established a mental link, he can start inflicting physical harm. So as you can see here, and this is only one of the henchmen you'll meet in this book, but he basically sits down with this guy and he's like, "You're scared. I'm scared too." He's like, "You're a little bit turned on by the restraints on your arms. I am too." And then he like starts to scrape at his face, and then you see it manifest on Homeboy's face there.
Yeah.
So that's one of his abilities. In the third issue, and which is one of my favorite single issue comics of all time, you meet one of the hitmen that literally can like cleave reality, and that becomes a huge part of the story because he sends her down these two possible paths. So essentially you get Taka as a character exploring two different choices with completely different impacts, and her decision on which one to take is a huge element in this book that I absolutely will not spoil, but it is insane. It's Dan Watters writing it. It's Danny on art, one of my favorite creative teams in comics. It's an image book, retails at $16.99, and it'll take your mind into some very dark places, but very philosophically rewarding places. There's a lot of philosophical meat to chew on with these books.
How does the general motif of that one compare to wasn't the first volume's vibe about unmaking your existence?
Yeah. So the first volume of Coffin Bound very much concerns itself with deconstructing the self, and she's on a journey to get rid of every trace of her, but she's having trouble understanding what makes her who she is. Is it the people around her? Is it the impact she leaves on the world? Is she just an object made of parts, blood, and muscle, and pieces and sinew? Or is it more than that? Does she have to wipe out more than that? The strippers that remove their flesh, for like the men that go and watch that, it's because they don't get off on the nudity. They get off on seeing the mechanisms and the inner workings of the human body, to see the body as an object. The first volume concerns itself with that. The second volume concerns itself with Taka's quest of relentlessly chasing death, confronting her morality in order to, escape the pains of life. And she slowly starts to learn that pain is kind of what defines life. And is that preferable? Is that really what she wants?
That's awesome. The chat's been blowing up a little bit.
Let's take a look
here. Mike Rowe, of course, is going to read it. He's wondering about a hardbound version. Mike, I would imagine, like with most image books, that they'll get a hardbound eventually. It doesn't. I don't know if the story's done yet, though, right, Cody? Don't you think that there's maybe more that they could be telling, or is this the end of Coffin Bound as we know it?
I feel like there might be another installment. I don't know that. I follow Dan and Danny pretty closely on Twitter, and I don't know if they've said that this is the end, but I think like Danny, has hinted that it's just, another installment, and that there might be more.
Right.
And I certainly hope so. I know that Dan Watters has a lot of exciting stuff happening, though. He and Casper Wingard, who did the book Limbo that I talked about on a previous show, they have a title called Homesick Pilots that comes out very, very soon.
Ooh,
and it's about.
I'm excited. Yeah.
It's been pitched as The Shining meets Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, because it's haunted house mechs and a punk band that pilots them. So it's gonna be insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Dan Waters also has The Picture of Everything Else debuting soon, which is kind of his exploration of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. It's going to be, there's a lot of great stuff that Dan will be coming out with very, very soon. And Michael, I hope that there's a hardbound version. I own all of Coffin Bound in singles. If there's a hardcover coming, I'm pre-ordering it, deluxe edition, whatever. Yeah. I want plushies. I want posters. I don't care.
Yeah. Thank God for Comic Hub. You guys can keep track when you check each week about final order cutoffs. If that does pop up, feel free to add a pre-order for yourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, Juliet, I'm so stoked for Homesick Pilot. It's going to be wonderful. I am so obsessed with Dan Waters' writing. Anything his name is on, his mind.
And what was the cool 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon that you found out about the Coffin Bound creative team? The Cy Spurrier connection?
Oh yeah, I mean, creators' personal lives, but I just found a connection with Emma Price, the designer. She designs all the trade dress and everything and the comic dress too. Is Cy Spurrier's significant other. It's just kind of cute and kind of fun.
Power couple. That's awesome.
Oh, hey, look who's here.
Oh God, this guy.
The real Mutant Menace. I've been outed.
What's up, you nerds?
Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
Are you talking to us while you're pooping right now?
No. Yes. No.
That was awesome.
What are you guys talking about? Comic books?
Yeah, we were just talking about Coffin Bound Volume 2.
Oh, just running my mouth on Coffin Bound again. What else is new?
Typical Fake Mutant Menace. Talking about Coffin Bound, my favorite book.
Yeah, your favorite. Right.
I'm my favorite writer and my favorite artist. Whatever. Go ahead, have fun. I think you accidentally sent me the link, so I thought I would pop in and say hi.
No, it actually wasn't an accident. I wanted to give you the option of joining because I'm considerate, a concept you're not familiar with.
Not my style. I tell you what, you guys go ahead and hop out. I'll take it from here. I'll talk about some books. I got some books here. Let me see what I got.
By the way, Ruby, the houses are the mechs, as far as I understand. The haunted houses are piloted as mechs, and that's about as much as we know so far. Other than the main characters are also in a punk rock band, which everything about that aesthetic, sign me up.
And the covers are beautiful.
Yes, Jacob says "gooped." For people that don't know, that means when you're just shocked.
I did not know that.
Thank God we have Cody here to translate. That's awesome. Are you going to talk about one anytime? You got a cool book you want to show us?
I mean,
how about a cool cover? Look, what's the coolest cover you have next to you right now?
This is on the bookshelf in my bedroom.
That's good.
You guys remember Mockingbird by Chelsea Kane, with an artist and other people. This is a really fun book. This is on my bookshelf.
Hell yeah, it is.
I'm not prepared to talk about it or anything. But, it's
okay.
Good.
Okay.
It's one of
Henry. Shout out.
My
Shout out to
bookshelves
Henry
in
on
my
that
house.
repeater.
My bookshelves are the most random assortment of things. I like about half of them. I have 2 complete series of anything. So not really ideal for me to jump in like that.
That's okay. Micro, that's a trade paperback that we I think have in stock at the store. Check it out. Read the description. See if it piques your interest.
What is he talking about? Mockingbird?
Oh, Mockingbird. Oh, Mockingbird is great. I can say enough about it that it was a 12-issue or a 10-issue miniseries.
It was 2 volumes.
Super funny. Yeah, super funny. Really did a great job of flipping the super spy kind of tropes, where she's the lead, she's the super spy, she's saving a dude who's tied up and scantily clad, and then takes him home at the end of the night and leaves in the morning in her sport car.
You get more Hawkeye being objectified, which I always appreciate.
Yeah, half the series takes place on a cruise ship that's having a corgi convention. Miles Morales is there. This is one of my favorite Marvel books from maybe 2018 or something when it came out.
And Mike Rose saying I think that was based off. Juliet commented that the light or the coloring on the sick pilot's home or homesick pilots is very bisexual lightning, which I thought was great.
Which Juliet defines here for all of our information.
There you go. I like it.
Nice.
Learning so many terms, you guys.
I'm gonna get out of here. I was just I thought I was crashing the party, and you took that enjoyment away from me. So if I'm not ruining it, then I don't want to be here. I'm just gonna watch as a fan. Enjoy the rest of your show. Good.
Have fun being belligerent in the comments.
Yeah,
will do. Bye bye.
Awesome.
Thank God he's gone.
Oof, man. All right. My turn. I got a cool volume 2 to show you. Folkers and Jokers. This is a volume 2 of a book I reviewed. I think maybe on our very first YouTube video. It's manga. The second volume came out, as mangas want to do. Comes out pretty quickly. I wanted to start by talking first, though, because I know Cody's watched it. The Earth 616 show on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
In that first episode where they're talking about Japanese Spider-Man, Stan Lee gives a description between manga and American comics that American comics are to read the story and a manga is to experience the story. And that totally freaking changed my outlook on manga. Now when I read it, I'm less concerned. I certainly look at all the cool stuff, but I move through a little quicker. The dialogue tends to be a little less stilted. So mad props to Stan Lee, RIP, for that little bit of insight. But the book I'm talking about is Chainsaw Man. If you guys recall, this story is about Denji, a down-on-his-luck orphan, who bonds with a demon dog named Pochito, and becomes the Chainsaw Man. He joins a demon hunter league, official city organization that hunts demons. And he's a pretty basic kid. He has not really lived much life, so his motivations are nothing quite as grandiose as killing all of the demons or anything like that. It's actually just a touch of boob, which I think is hilarious. So in this book, he is still after the goal to touch a boob, and he actually gets to touch a boob. But there's a lot of awesome monster slaying in this. I friggin' just love this book. Let me show you guys a couple cool pictures that are super duper ridiculous. Let's see here. So he's fighting a bat demon. And the bat demon is like, you let a human get away, but you're a devil. What is it that you want? To split your belly open and touch those boobs, duh. And then from there, it just gets more and more ridiculous. A little bit of bat demon slaying madness. So if you want a very excellently drawn manga series that's just starting, so you don't feel like you have to trudge through 30 volumes of it to catch up with where it's at, I would highly recommend Chainsaw Man. It's goofy, it's silly, tons of blood, very, very violent, just the way I like it. All right, that's my number one, or that's my first one.
That's your first one. That is a number 2. Your first volume
that's my
2.
First one. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay. This next book I'm going to talk about is another pretty recent release. Came out a couple weeks ago. This is a book under Image Comics. It is called 20XX. It's by Jonathan Luna and Lauren Keeley.
Oh yeah.
So people who will recognize the art style right off the bat. It's Jonathan Luna of Alex and Ada and several other things. But this is one of those books that it reminded me of the close proximity of how I read this with J. Michael Straczynski's The Resistance, because this is a book that happens to be like in the middle of a pandemic and there's people in face masks and everyone's getting sick. And it was like, all right, let's do this. So basically, much like the Resistance, this is a pandemic that is wiping a lot of people out, and the ones that survive it, a certain percentage of them come out with telekinetic abilities. Now, whereas the Resistance was kind of miscellaneous superhero abilities, this one is strictly telekinetic, which I thought was really interesting. And what makes it even more interesting is that the telekinesis involved is very, very specific. It's limited to very specific materials. So there are those that can manipulate vegetable fibers, synthetic fibers, minerals, glass, soft tissues, wood, metal, plastic, water, or bone. So only these specific materials are just like hardwired into the abilities that they gain. And I really like the design sensibilities behind giving each one a symbol, which I just completely nerded out over. I mean, those are all like perfect ideas for like industrial tattoos. Just be like, what the hell does that mean? It'll be like, it means I manipulate metal, you know. But anyway, so I thought that was really interesting. Now, this book, just like any great science fiction work, is it's more than just like people getting telekinetic abilities and fighting through a disease, blah, blah. It's very, very much concerned with the social aspect of gangs, gang mentality, and oppression of peoples. Just like with things like X-Men, these people who do survive the pandemic with these weird abilities are very much feared and looked down on. And they're basically lower class citizens. So this stars this woman, the main woman, her name is Maria. Now Maria is a pretty affluent woman, and she just landed a promotion at work at this company she works for. And she's very, very excited to hear this news. This is her big break. She goes into work and happens to be talking to somebody she works with. And in the middle of their conversation, her eyes start to bleed, which is one of the telltale signs of falling ill to this sickness that's running rampant. So she falls victim to this disease and ends up with superpowers, with telekinesis. Her telekinesis is kind of like a big shocker at the end of the issue, but essentially she can manipulate organic matter, which I guess, soft tissues. So she's called a soft tissue manipulator. Now, basically, on this journey to discover her telekinesis, she's cast out, sent down. There's this whole caste system in place of if you have these abilities, you have to sign up for all this registration. You're designated as this lower class citizen. And she ends up getting wrapped up into the gang politics of her, I believe it's her cousin, who's deeply involved in one of the gangs of, I forget what they call themselves, but they're basically the telekinetic people that fell ill to the disease. And he's kind of two-timing the East Side and West Side gangs. So he's kind of locked in this, he's kind of playing both fields, and it ends up being that she gets tied up in these webs that her cousin's woven. She ends up falling in love with another woman who's another TK user. And she's unaware that this woman is part of the opposing gang that she ends up joining. So there's kind of a Romeo and Juliet aspect there too, of being from opposite sides and kind of the chaos that causes. And something I liked about this book is that, I mean, one of my first questions was, how can these really powerful telekinetic users that can literally manipulate the environment and materials around them, how could they just become lower class citizens, right? I mean, you would think that like one of the first things there's going to be is like a Magneto figure who's going to just want to go ahead and overthrow the, like, you know, smaller people who don't have the powers. And that was kind of something I grappled with, like, why are they so quick to fall? But there's little like pieces here that hint that there was some kind of big event that ended in some kind of legislation that kind of kept things peaceful. But it's interesting because this book doesn't really concern itself with the big picture, because that's not really its goal. What this book is really trying to do is explore these people as characters and the relationships they have with each other. And it ended up being a really fascinating look at gang politics and gang violence, and how she, you know, like many of us, look at gangs as something that are maybe troublesome, maybe scary. But what this book really does is it focuses on how sometimes the gang can be more than that. What they're really building are these communities because they had to, you know, they were forced to. So there's so many reflections to real life. and how complicated it all is, and how a lot of the gang violence that happens comes from protecting each other, but how that slowly just kind of corrupts everything around them. So all the people who know these people in the gangs, it's like a ripple effect. Everyone's life is touched. The lies compound upon each other, and there's a couple big surprises in this book too, as characters find out more about what's really going on. And it just very much concerns itself with being this massive sci-fi story spoken about on this small scale of these characters that we get to know and how they're connected and how the connections get frayed through all of the violence that we see. All in all, a really, really fun book. It's very immersive. It's very wordy, which is nice to me because it really felt like it moves like a, almost like a prose novel. But I love it. And there's great character work here. You start to really learn who these people are and care about them. There's people that are full of surprises, like people that you hate at first and then realize, wow, actually this decision they just made was like actually something I could see happening. The line work is, Jonathan Luna. It's those very clean lines. It's a black and white book that turns off some people. I've pitched this book at the store and people didn't want to get it because it was black and white, to which I say nay, how could you? It's honestly, it's really good stuff. I'm going to jump into the chat real quick because I think I missed stuff. Feel free to add stuff though, Kevin. I didn't mean to talk.
No, that's okay. It's hearing you talk about it has made it definitely something that has moved up my pile. I haven't gotten a chance to check it out yet, but I remember someone was asking in the chat a little bit earlier about how long this has been coming out, and it was coming out before the pandemic. I don't know how much before the pandemic, but I don't know, maybe the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Mike Rowe is right. It was like a year ago. I started reading it. Yeah. About a year ago. It was winter of last year. I remember picking it up and thinking it was very, very cool.
Yeah.
It set up this big world, society shaking event, and how we restructured with what happened afterward. And then I was reading it into this year. And I jumped off of it in singles. I read like the first two, and then it kind of fell off my radar, and everything went to shit, in the beginning of this year. And then I rediscovered it during FOC time. I saw the trade coming out, and I was like, oh my God, isn't this the book with the massive pandemic in the beginning? And I was like, actually, I really liked that. And I liked the telekinesis, and I liked how specific it all was, because that was kind of, unique to this book, I thought. So yeah, very, very prescient stuff. Very, very hauntingly prescient.
Because I mean, the pandemic, really kicked off over here around March, but I other parts of the world, it was going on for a bit before too. So it's kind of cool when that awareness kind of creeps over, and it seems like it was something that they were predicting the future. I don't really know, whether the chicken or the egg came first. But it's a really cool.
It's crazy because even the Resistance by J. Michael Straczynski was about the pandemic, and that was before. And it's wild.
Yeah.
Like, the life imitating art is really, really spooky, and happens a lot. And Mike Rowe, what I didn't say is its powers are death. People don't survive this. The ones that do get the telekinesis.
That's cool.
Matt. Hi, Matt. This is called 20XX, and Juliet just kind of like blew my mind with this comment. Like, XX though? Is this book literally called 2020 after all?
Probably.
Anyway, so it might be like too real for some people, but I think I found it to be a rewarding reading experience. There's a lot of stuff about social structure, caste systems, gang wars, gang mentalities, and just what it means to kind of find family when everything you used to have is gone, and you have this power that you don't understand. And it's just, it's wild. It's really creative too, some of the fights in here. I mean, she controls soft tissue. So she can literally manipulate and move the human body. And in the end of the first issue, they're fighting a rival gang who's about to like kill her family member. So she just screams no and uses her power and just blows all of his flesh off. Just blows this guy up.
Yes.
Just using her soft tissue power. So, and she starts like also like she practices on mice, moving their bodies around. It's like so wild. And it's really funny because this one chick can just, she can move, there's like organic matter and synthetic fibers. So one of them can move synthetic fibers. So she yanks people around by the clothes. And it's also worth mentioning too. I totally forgot because it's interesting. They don't just have telekinesis; they also have what they call sensing. So they can sense their material from a certain range, not incredibly far. So the people that have like bone telekinesis, they can use it as a sort of X-ray vision, almost like a radar, and see skeletons in buildings. So they can tell if buildings are empty or full just because they can feel their material that they sense and can visibly see like skeletons.
That's
And it's
cool.
funny, the woman that can manipulate clothes can see like the clothes. So she literally will just see like shirts and pants moving through wall. It's so weird. It's very unique. I really thought it was interesting.
Well, I'm gonna read it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna read it. That's cool.
And Julia, yeah, I think it's just this volume. The way it ends really made me want more, though. Like, I won't give it away, but it ends with such an emotional page. And after you've read the whole thing, you're just like, what? Like, you really want these two to love each other, and you just like have to know if they do. So I hope there's more, but I think this is it right now. Oh,
So good. I can't wait.
yeah, good stuff. Recommend it, Matt.
All right. My next one's kind of an oldie, but in my mind, a goldie. Who here is a Godzilla fan? Or a James Stokoe fan? I think I can safely say that if you like James Stokoe and you don't give a shit about Godzilla, you're going to love this book. So this one's called Godzilla: The Half-Century War. It's presented in this gorgeous hardcover. And it's a story about Godzilla, but it's more a story about this man who works in the AWF or something. I'm trying to remember what the name of the organization was. But he starts as a young man around the first time that Godzilla makes landfall in Tokyo. And much like a force of nature, they're trying to protect the citizens of the city and do what they can. There's no control in a force of nature. So Godzilla does his thing and essentially looks like he's checking out Tokyo. He doesn't really look like he has any big plans until people start shooting at him. And then he just levels Tokyo and disappears off into the sea. But the story is called The Half-Century War because the story follows this young man over 50 years as Godzilla rises again out of the ocean and goes from being this sort of antagonist who they're constantly having to mobilize the military to handle it. He starts to become a kind of a savior of the city. Like big other monsters are coming to Tokyo, like Mothra and Rodan and all the classic.
Mothra.
Yeah, right. All the classic Godzilla monsters, and time again, he comes out of the sea to fight these monsters, and then goes back into the sea. Stop shooting, big buddy. See, agreed, 100% agreed. You got to find out what he wants. Maybe he just wants a snack.
Kaiju
not
are
necessarily going to be humans. What's
Kaiju
that?
are friends, not food.
Yeah, kaiju are our friends. And so as over these 50 years, the situation escalates. And it's cool because the book follows along through various conflicts that happen over the 50 years. I think each issue of this book, when it was coming out in singles, started with a new date and a new world-changing event. It goes through Vietnam, and I think there's one in Ghana. But it's amazing. I mean, look at this art. I don't know if you guys know who James Stokoe is, but he is a master of the fine detail.
So good.
I mean, just look at the people that he draws. Every single person is unique. There's not a single person that looks like another person. In my mind, I just have no problem telling it apart. And his colors. I don't know anybody else that really colors like James Stokoe. So if you like monsters, if you like lots of kaiju, battling kaiju, and Godzilla cast in a more sympathetic light than I feel like he typically gets. I mean, look at this shit. They've even got, sorry to make you keep going back to my close-up, Cody.
No, it's worth it. This is great.
Look at that Mecha Godzilla. As you can imagine, that doesn't go over super well. Very emotional ending because this guy has just been, he's survived all these conflicts with Godzilla, which not a lot of people do. Millions die or thousands die when he comes out of the ocean. So it's cool to get this different perspective on a character that we've seen in popular culture and old movies and stuff like that. Get a new fresh take. So it's a hardcover that sells for $29.99. I'd check it out, especially if you like the kaijus.
I'm sorry. I just want to apologize to everybody watching. I just did a bunch of weird camera stuff, and it was totally not on purpose. I swear to God, I'm drinking a Coke. Like it seemed like. See now you just left. Oh. All right. Well, Kevin will be back. Literally, it's like, stop operating the chat, Cody. You're drunk. Go home. But I'm not. I'm drinking Coca-Cola, and I'm still just messing everything up. Okay, he's back.
I tried to check the chat for you, and then I hit leave. I gotta put them buttons next to each other.
So funny. Okay, sorry everybody. But
I do see Mike. I see Mike Rowe there making the comparison, like Jeff Darrow. I agree with that 100%. I think that James Stokoe has a very fine detail sensibility, like Jeff Darrow, who I am most definitely going to show off some stuff probably next week. Thanks for the idea, Mike.
I was actually going to highlight that same comment about Jeff Darrow. It's very that, and both of those artists have a similar vibe to me, and same like fascination with their line work that I have for the artist of Akira, Katsuhiro Otomo, who does Akira. Like the line work, like I could look at like Jeff Darrow, people like Stokoe, and Katsuhiro Otomo draw buildings forever. Like the skyscrapers and just the line work on them is just like wild. And yeah, seeing Stokoe stuff too in those vivid colors, just I love it.
It's a certainly more palatable option than Orc Stain, which is a great Stokoe book, but it's kind of weird. If you like high fantasy though, that's another amazing Stokoe book. It's funny that you even mentioned Jeff Darrow, because it was between Godzilla Half Century War and Hard Boiled for me when I was picking stuff, but I haven't read Hard Boiled in a little while, so we'll have to come back to that one.
Yeah, so good.
I love kaijus.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not even like, honestly, like, I've never been into the kaiju scene really. Like,
yeah.
But when it's illustrated that way, is there light flashing?
I don't know. I see it on my side.
Are one of our lights dying?
I don't know. Maybe your camera's picking up a weird light from outside.
Okay.
I thought you were doing it first. I thought it was a stylistic choice.
Oh yeah. Just like really just entering like I'm playing around with lights and colors. Yeah, we're going there. I'm a regular Kubrick right now. It's gonna be great. All right. So I'm going to talk about a book because I want to get some superheroes back up in this weep. Specifically the X-Men, of course, because I need to stay on brand at least a little bit. So I'm going to highlight an era of X-Men that I think is fabulous. This is really what, aside from runs like Grant Morrison's New X-Men, this is really what started to make me just go all in to the comics and have to have everything. This is a big old crossover event from the like early to mid 2000s. It's called Messiah Complex. This was a big old X crossover event that crossed over the titles at the time, X Factor and Uncanny X-Men and Mike Carey's X-Men Legends runs. And I think some of the new X-Men too, but post Morrison, so the younger kids. And this book also launched the new X-Force and gave us a brand new, brutal, cutthroat X-Force team. That's one of my favorite teams ever. A lot came out of this book. This is, by the way, Marvel's putting these out there called X-Men Milestones. They all have a uniform spine, which I absolutely adore. And they're very, very nifty collections because they are just basically capsules of very important X-Men eras that changed the status quo for the X-Men. And you can get every major thing from, Mutant Massacre to and on. Basically, there's an Onslaught one. So every major X-Men event has been, well, they're still working on it, but a lot of them have been collected in these milestones, which is fabulous for all the new readers and new fans that we have reading, Dawn of X, House of X, Powers of 10, 10 of Swords. If you're really just jonesing for X-Men right now and you want to dive into stuff that is still being referenced to, by the way, and still stuff that has affected them. Messiah Complex is one of the best. This book came spun out of the events that Brian Michael Bendis laid down in House of M. Now, House of M was a big event that wiped out almost the entire mutant population of the world, down to around only about 200 of them, or 198 is the number they kind of stuck with.
Did it wipe them out, or it just depowered them, right?
Yes. It depowered them. Sorry, not all of them died, but it's worth mentioning that a lot of them did die, which is really tragic because you see how some of them, some of them without their powers, they can't live. Some of them are using their powers and doing crazy things, and in the middle of it, were depowered. So there were a lot of deaths, but it was mostly a massive depowering at the hands of Scarlet Witch, who some problematic elements of that story that I won't get into now, but essentially she created a new reality, and we came out of it with her enraged at the Avengers lying to her about the existence of her children. Ended really badly, ended terribly for poor Wanda, and ended really poorly for mutants as well. But what we got out of this huge crisis event is a brand new, amazing era for the X-Men. The X-Men were completely put into crisis mode after that, strictly survival. That was their number one. Sorry, there's a fly. That's why I keep doing that.
I was swatting at it too.
Oh my gosh.
Do we have two flies, or is it one fly who's just
going
to whoever's fucking talking?
Yeah, seriously, it's so annoying. Every time I start talking about a book, he's trying to say hello. He just really likes X-Men too, but that's okay. Anyway. So this is the X-Men with their backs up against the wall, completely at their wits' end. They're just really looking out for each other. Survival's their number one priority. Now, in the middle of this, Messiah Complex kicks off with the first birth of a mutant, the first natural birth of a mutant since House of M. This is a huge deal. And basically every mutant worth their salt is after this baby, because this baby could be the key to understanding how to get back to the way things were. A lot hinges on this one child's birth. So essentially you get the Uncanny X-Men, which Ed Brubaker was taking care of at the time. So big names. X-Factor was in the middle of Peter David's X-Factor Investigations run, which happens to be my favorite X book ever, is tied in here. And then you also have Craig Kyle and Chris Yost taking care of a lot of the new X-Men and eventually X-Force. And then you have the amazing Mike Carey doing his massively underappreciated X-Men Legacy run. And all of these powerhouses, all of these great writers came together to organize this event. And wow, is it worth the journey? You get amazing artists too, like Ramos is in here, Chris Bacalo's in here. Just amazing heavy hitters. And essentially, this also gives us the really, really poorly handled Bishop situation, where Bishop has been traveling through time, massacring entire civilizations of people to get his hands on Hope. That all happened in this book. Hope is the name of the child that's born. And so you get him being all crazy, essentially traveling through time to murder a baby. And you get Cable being the one guy who's trying to get this baby safe. This is like the birth of the iconic image of Cable with the baby strapped to him. That's little tiny Hope. Cable being that crusader who's just knocking down anybody who's trying to get him. And you get the return of characters like the Reavers. Like I said, X-Force, a brand new run comes out of this, starring characters like X-23, aka Laura Kinney, aka the best Wolverine. There, I said it. Cancel me, don't care. But yeah, you get the birth of their team of trackers who are just trying to find this child and find Cable. It's wild and it's intense, and wow. If you guys haven't read it and you like X-Men, jump into it. If you're curious of where to maybe jump into X-Men, that's going to get you stoked about, crossovers in the past, however long. This is a great place to start. I highly recommend it. Non-stop intensity in this run. You also get, this is where Jamie Madrox, aka Multiple Man, gets his M branded on his face because he ends up.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like so much came from this book that is, like I said, still referenced, still talked about to this day in X-Men continuity.
Damn, that made me want to talk about the Multiple Man Rosenberg book. I love Multiple Man. So good.
That book is wild. I need to read that.
Hilarious.
If you can believe it, I've still only read it in singles, and I was so lost. Yeah. And I told myself, okay, I'm going to read it again. Bought the trade, and still haven't reread it. It's funny because what I understood about Rosenberg's Multiple Man run is that, with amazing art by Andy McDonald, by the way, if you want to see good line work, check out Andy McDonald. But Yeah, he wanted to release that book with like a map in the back, essentially like a diagram to help understand.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. And I was like, that would have been so cool, especially because it's Matt Rosenberg. So it would have been really funny.
Yeah. It was like the best multiple reality time travel story I had read in so long. I was laughing out loud. I'll even dig out my singles to reread that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Typically, yeah, you're right. We don't talk about Onslaught. I thought I could just like slip that in there, but you caught me. Ruby House of M is really, really good. Like I said, there's some moments in it that I'm like, ugh, but also it's just so classic. And you get Olivier Coipel on the art and Bendis in true Bendis form. It's a really good story. And it changed everything. It completely changed everything. I mean, Bendis came in Marvel like a wrecking ball. The stuff he accomplished is amazing. And House of M was a huge thing that changed X-Men literally forever. I'm not even going to downplay it. Nothing's really been the same since then. Really shook him. And yeah, like you can tell Jonathan Hickman too appreciates how intense it was, because there's moments in his Hoxpox run where it's called back to like one of the tragedies the mutants have gone through. House of M was major crisis.
Yeah. And the result is you got to get murdered on Krakoa in order to get them powers back.
Yeah. A lot of those depowered mutants we're seeing just go to the Crucible with Apaki, big blue mutant daddy, and dying by big blue daddy sword. Yeah. Juliet, this fly is, if he wants to be a coworker, then he needs to help process new books, because I'm not here to, you pay rent, you help with work, or you get out. So
at least drop off a resume.
Yeah. Like, let us know who you are.
Yeah. How much is that Milestone book? Or is that like a value priced, or is that
It's $34.99, but
it's reasonable. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's so sizable, and I should honestly like,
I will show me some of that sweet art.
I'll never get the hang of showing art on this. Oh, I know what I want to show you guys though. It's this it's so good. It's Humberto Ramos doing a fight in the Arctic, and everything is stark white. And like I said, it's the birth of X-Force, so it's like super brutal. But the stark contrast of like the coloring of all the blood on the snow, and you get like X-23 versus Lady Deathstrike, and it's just like wicked stuff. Yeah, like I said, showing art this way, but
that's peak Ramos. I like that.
Oh, it's so good. Hold on. I'll show some Bacalo too, just because.
That's got Bacalo and Ramos.
Oh yeah, it's got so
good God
many people.
Man.
Yeah, some young X-Men here, some of the new X-Men post Morrison. So you got like Anole, you got Rockslide, Prodigy's there, Surge. Look at we got Tempo. I love Tempo. It's so good. To be more clear, yeah, Mark Silvestri, Billy Tan, Scott Eaton, Humberto Ramos, and Chris Bacalo. Like,
wow. Yeah, I would sign up for any single one of those artists' new series right now if they had some coming out. That's great.
Right.
Ruby, I've been listening to you. I got something creepy for you. Let's see here. Yeah, I think Ruby was asking for something. Creep Town. All right, I got one. So this book is called Road of Bones. Have you read this?
Oh no, Juliet said Prodigy, and I love him too.
Oh, Prodigy, yeah. I was like, oh, Cody's read Road of Bones? Weird. This book is by Rich Douek and I think it's Alex Cormack. Yep, Alex Cormack, who was the artist on another book that was coming out. I forget the publisher, but it's called Sync, and it's about like a vigilante superhero in Glasgow, and it is so violent and gory that they polybagged the trades when they were coming out. But this guy does amazing art in light and dark spaces. I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. But this story is about the Siberian Gulag of Kolyma in 1953, which is this like prison out in the middle of the Arctic wasteland. It's not Arctic, I know that. But it's out in the middle of a snow-fallen wasteland. And it's about two prisoners that escape. And it doesn't really matter when you escape from the gulag because there's hundreds of miles of nothing that you have to get through in order to survive. But it's about this guy who gives it a shot. So he cracks out with his he gets out of there with one of his fellow prisoners, and they start to move across the tundra, and they seem to be helped by a character from Russian fairy tales. But you can't really tell whether this is because he's going insane out in the snow all alone with another criminal, or if this entity is actually helping. But let me show you some art. With all good creepy horror stuff, you gotta go with the art. Like, I don't think I'd read a Scotty Young horror book. Actually, screw that. I would definitely read a Scotty Young horror book, but that's not the first choice of art I would imagine for like a really impactful horror story. So let me. I'm terrible about queuing this stuff up. Thanks, guys, for being patient.
Oh, I am too. Honestly, I feel so like I'm gonna start bookmarking these pages, you guys. I promise, because I hate making people wait for like me to find a cool picture.
So the story kind of starts out with, oh, I know how I can show it off. Story starts out with a lot of them laboring at the prison in the dark at night, getting fed nothing but scraps. Prisoner riots break out, people get gunned down, and then it very quickly, once they escape, switches to this like white scape of these prisoners cruising. They've got limited food. They have, God, I don't even know how they stay warm enough to keep moving. I guess it's like do or die. But I'm gonna show you guys a picture of the creepy fairy tale creature.
That was a really nice use of that snow and the blank space too, though.
It's so good, and then it doesn't stop there. It's not like all light or dark. There's a lot of stuff, you know, when they transition to like campfire, like the lighting changes. It's very, very moody, which I like. Look at this one. That's him eating a rabbit in the snow that they found, trying to survive. So it's like, it's intense. It's not gory for the sake of gory or just to like gross you out or anything, but it digs into the fairy tale. These prisoners, you know, they go a little mad. They stop trusting each other as they're making this journey. And I'm not going to tell you if they make it. I think you should read it and check it out. It's a single volume, so you don't need to. It's not like there's a lot of volumes you got to check out. But I should show you this this cover that he did with I believe it's the fairy tale character.
Oh, nice!
Like, look at this guy's art; it's insane.
Awesome. I love.
He's also doing another comic currently called Sea of Sorrows, which is like I think it's like a Russian submarine horror story or something like that. Let me find the name of the character, Juliet. They talk about Adamovic. Does that ring a bell?
Not to me.
I'll have to I'll do a little more. Yeah, Adamovic. Like my grandmother used to tell me, a fucking fairy tale. So yeah, apparently the Adamovic, they guard the house, watch over the people inside, and protect them. But of course, in this wasteland, with everything wrong, it is not quite the saving grace that it seems like it would be from that initial description. It's kind of terrifying. Chernobog. Yeah, I mean, hey, we'll go with that, sure. But yeah, so this is it's by IDW. It's $18, one and done. You want some cool, creepy, I don't know if I'd call this historical horror, because it does deal with a real place. But yeah, check it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that spoopy art.
Yeah, I can pick up anything of that guy's and it's the same. I mean, just look at like that cover that I was showing you. You don't need to zoom in, but like look at those, like his detail. It's just incredible and the coloring is so good.
That's awesome.
I wonder who his colorist is. He does the colors too, so that's why it's always so dope.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I think we got we're pretty much at like the 6-minute mark. If we want to do open it up a little bit to questions and comments, or just tell us how you're feeling in the chat. We'd love to talk to you a little bit for the last couple minutes.
Yeah.
Unless you had one you wanted to do really quick or anything.
No, the ones that I was going to show, I could wait till later. I feel like, especially since Juliet's in here, I was going to talk about sex criminals, and kind of like a, hey, everyone knows about sex criminals at this point. If you don't, you should. But just to call out the fact that Volume 6 of Sex Criminals just came out after a long hiatus. So if you've been jonesing for the end of the amazing Sex Criminals saga, don't miss out. We got plenty of Volume 6 to check out. That was my only little plug I wanted to do before we were done.
Also, you can totally talk about Sex Criminals because that did not stop Aton from talking about it that one week that year on vacay. Aton had, that week. Aton had like he had like the horny books down pat. He talked about Sex Criminals. He talked about Money Shot. He was really he was going for it that week.
That's awesome. On brand. Cody, what's your shirt? Black Craft Cult, son.
Yeah, this is Black Craft Cult. So they're a brand I really like, all about like Satan and the devil. This is a cool shirt though. I got this one because it's like a EC Comics homage. It's like very Tales from the Crypt status.
Yeah.
Got Dracula and some skulls and shit. It's very on brand for me. I
was introduced to Black Craft Cult from you, and then I went to their website to like look at cool stuff that they have, not realizing that it is a huge company that has hundreds of items.
Yeah.
I went to look at shirts and it was like one of 35 pages. So if you want some cool, creepy, dark shit, go check out Black Craft Cult.
Yeah, for sure. They do like the aesthetic is very spoopy, very like demonic, and they have like actually several like classic horror comic homage shirts that are super cool.
Oh, Ruby Booth is saying we should recommend some intro trades for gifts. Yeah, we could do that.
Is that
as
just
far as I was gonna say, like, do you think in Ruby, you want recommendations for gifts for kids or for readers our age or people that are into superhero stuff? I mean, I have a ton of recommendations. I'm sure Cody does too. So
is that just like what does that mean? Like good gift ideas or like trades that
like volume ones of good gifts.
Oh, okay. So things that like people can like intro trades for somebody that like maybe doesn't read comics, that kind of thing.
Let's see.
Henry, I was so hyped when I saw the X-Men in King in Black. Can't wait for issue 2. Any books this month y'all are excited for? Okay, before we talk about what we're excited about, and Kevin knows what I'm gonna say. This was such a like nitpick for me, but I was really annoyed. And I'm sure it's just a thing of like the memo not being passed through the proper channels, or maybe like the artist Stegman didn't get this memo. I don't know what happened, but when the X-Men appear in King in Black, it's really, really cool because the X-Men are my favorite. But they're in that splash page that's really epic. It could have been perfect, except for the fact that I don't think anyone passed on the memo that like old Cable's like dead. Like that to me, that looks like adult Cable.
That is most definitely adult Cable.
It doesn't really look like Kid Cable, and it's such a small thing. But like but like for me, like I love old Cable, so it just felt like rude. It felt like a tease. Like, it's not like this needs to be little twink Cable. Like that's not Daddy Cable. Daddy Cable's not here right now. For anyone reading Cable, like Daddy Cable is like around. We don't really understand the context, but like we're dealing with Twink Cable right now, so he would have been with them anyway. It's so minimal, but, you know, I'm just like that.
Best page of the issue, that cinematic splash. Oh my god. I'm super excited for the King in Black stuff. What else am I excited for?
So this month what we're excited about, I believe Homesick Pilots is right around the corner. I think that's like really up there for me, because I'm a Dan Water stan for life. And it's going to be visually striking too with Casper Wingard. So that's very, very much up there for me. Also, you know what I'm excited about when it comes to King in Black is the newly relaunched Black Cat book. And I'm excited because all the solicits say that the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, is going to steal from Null. So like the idea of Felicia Hardy stealing from a space god, hell yes. And like she just gonna status quo will be changed for her after this. But I am down to see some Felicia Hardy stealing from a space god. That sounds so good.
Hell yeah. So Ruby clarified a little bit. Yeah, the cool stuff that stands alone. Ruby, if you have anybody in your life who is a heavy metal fan, I highly recommend Murder Falcon. That is one of the best standalone books of the last couple of years in my mind. It's about a guy who is a washed up rocker who's still got his axe, and his monsters are starting to pop out of these portals all over Earth and attack humanity. He realizes that his guitar has the ability to summon the Murder Falcon from on high. The tastier the licks, the more power he has to smash monsters. So he goes about getting the band back together. All the band members have an instrument with magical powers to summon a different mythical creature. So you get to see this old kind of washed up rock band busting out some tasty licks and bringing a woolly mammoth and a wolf and a murder falcon. And I'm a huge like old video game fan as well, so I really appreciated the fact that they dialogue Murder Falcon basically like Duke Nukem. I thought like the entire time I read it, it was just like "Hail to the King, baby." So I would check out Murder Falcon. That's a glowing recommendation from Kevbotzilla.
Yeah, and if all else fails, just buy Coffin Bound by Dan Waters and Danny. But everyone's taking that advice from me. Also, Ruby, about Cable. Yes, that is how it feels. Twink Cable is certainly Scrappy Doo. He's adorable, though, actually. I've come around. I've come around a little bit because of Ten of Swords. I think he was really, like, charming, and I love how he's younger now, so they can really play with the whole Scott and Jean being parents, because he's like, Mom, Dad, things are really bad. I was like, oh, like, you precious soft boy, and drawing the Fool card and just being like, really, like, I'm coming around on him, I think, but he's no Daddy Cable, but I'm coming around on him.
Do you think he's gonna have a big role in Sword when that launches? I mean, his sword powers the frickin' station, so
Oh yeah! Speaking of things I'm excited about, I'm real excited for Sword. Oh my gosh, Al Ewing writing it, VD on the art, and wow, that team is so cool too. Manifold's there, yes, hook it up, and with his sword being integral to that story, that's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And Juliet, no, I didn't read that, but I will check it out because Wingard he's the shit.
I read it because Juliet was all about it, and if you're not reading what Juliet's all about, she's gonna tell you all about it. So I got to check out the first few issues. I just kind of dropped off. I think I was reading some other stuff at the time, but it was awesome. It was really, really cool. Thank you, Juliet, for recommending that. That would have passed me by without a second look.
Yeah, and you can plumb the depths or our backlog of YouTube videos and hear me really poorly try to describe Limbo if you want. Limbo is a Dan Waters book with Caspar Wingard. It was their previous collaboration before the upcoming Homesick Pilots. I feel like I did a miserable job explaining it, and I'm sorry, but it's such a good book, and it's worth saying to definitely read that. That would be one too, to just like a standalone, really, really cool, stylish Limbo for sure. And Henry, yes, Dan Waters. He does his stuff coming for Future State. He's doing Superman, Wonder Woman. Let's
address Future State real quick before we end. Just so everyone knows who's keeping an eye on what's coming out from DC in the next coming months, they're going to pause all other titles for a month or two while they put out the Future State. So if you're not checking out Future State because you feel like you already got too much DC stuff to read, that's not the case. Feel free to sign up for any of the ones that you want. There's like multiple books with the same characters and different teams and stuff like that. So you really get to fine tune your preference of how you want to read your DC characters. It looks awesome. The creative teams are insane. So since you're not getting any other DC books, go all in if you want to. I think when we looked at it, it's like 20 to 30 issues during that time. So
Future State's going to be sweet. I'm excited for that.
I'm excited too.
Mike Rowe, I'm a little bit like bummed that you're cheating on me by saying that. But at the same time, though, I get it because I'm kind of the rebound comic salesman after Juliet left. So like I can only fill that emotional void for you so much because we all have, our first love for our first salesman. So I get it. And Juliet's great, so I'll allow it. But
No.
Just don't forget about me.
Let's say to anyone who didn't get the recommendation they wanted tonight, please reach out to us at the store. You're welcome to message us on Instagram or Facebook or email or call, carrier pigeon. We don't care. We are exploding with recommendations. So holler at us. We're happy to share.
and I had big shoes to fill, Juliet. I knew I had very, very big shoes, and I hope I've done an okay job.
Well, you don't eat an apple like an animal, that's for sure. Love you, Juliet.
I think that's an inside joke.
Nah, Juliet eats that whole apple. It's interesting to watch. But Juliet's interesting. I love Juliet. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. We're a little over time, but thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah, this was so much fun. I'm so glad you guys came and contributed to the chat. It's so much more fun when that happens. So please continue to.
Yeah.
We hope you had fun. If you do, don't hesitate to come back. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube if you like the video when this goes live over there. And subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can do all the cool stuff like change our URL. Like that's how ridiculous YouTube is. We need like 100 subscribers or something. Anyway, like it's not just for clout. Like I just want to change the URL. Like I really care about these things. But anyway, we super duper appreciate it. Once again, everything we talked about can be purchased on our online store, cablecowlcomics.com. There's actually a link directly in the description. You can just click for convenience. Go ahead and shop the shop site. Yeah, and call the shop. We're always here. We live here, and we love you all. We always like to talk about comics. It's kind of our favorite thing. So yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.